Namaste, everyone. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining. You will see that I am very lucky, very blessed to be joined by my Bhaiya, Dhruv Chhatralia ji. Now, I will actually leave the introductions to him in just a moment because I don't feel I could do justice to all the fantastic work he does, not just in his professional life, but for Hindu Dharma. So I will pass on to Dhruv Chhatralia ji, my Bhaiya, if I might, to introduce himself and particularly, the work that he is doing for Hindu Dharma.
Thank you, Melissa Behen, for inviting me on this wonderful show. And I just first like to say very, very happy belated birthday from both a titty perspective and a birthday perspective. I'm very, very lucky to have you as my sister, not just because of our brother-sister bond, but because of the amazing work you've done from Sanatan Dharma. You've inspired me on my personal journey, especially since knowing you for the past few years, and you've inspired countless others in the Hindu community, not just because of the work you're doing, but with the genuineness with which you do it, with the bhakti with which you do it. And your reverence towards Hanumanji is very, very inspiring. So I'm very delighted to be on the show. And just as an introduction to our viewers, to what we do as an organization. So my journey in Sanatan Dharma since I was a child, I was instilled the values of Hinduism by attending the discourses of various sages and gurus in Hinduism. And I had a lot of devotion towards Ganesh, Hanuman, and Bhagavan Shri Krishna and Ma Durga since childhood. Over time, as I traveled more to Bharat and developed more of a connection to it, I fell in love with the kind of the culture, the tradition of Hinduism, and also the philosophy of all the different Ashad-darshans, the 6 branches of Hinduism. I became more and more fascinated by them, and it's something that I didn't choose, but it chose me. So the right teachers appeared to me at the right time, and I sat at the feet of those teachers to learn the Shastras, such as the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Hanuman Chalisa, Ramayan, Shrimad Bhagavad, and my knowledge and my the bond with Sanatan Dharma has grown stronger and stronger over time. So over time, I've just written books on Hinduism and given talks on them, and delighted to be able to be part of this tradition of imparting this wisdom. And the more and more I learn about Hinduism, and I am continuing to learn more and more because I don't feel I even know 1%. The more I become in awe of it, the more I feel a sense of humility and gratitude to be born into this tradition, and also not just to be born in this tradition, because many people are born in this tradition but don't practice it, to be blessed to be able to practice it due to the inspirations of seeing people who are self-realized yogis that actually live this path. So very, very honored to be part of this tradition. Thank you.
Perfect. Jai Bajrang Bali. Wow. So while I remember, can I ask all the viewers to please subscribe to this channel? I think I'm currently on 29.9 thousand subscribers, so please get me just that last 130,000 would be amazing. So Dhruv Bhaiya, you founded the Shyam not-for-profit organization that is spreading, promoting the Shastras in particular. So perhaps firstly, could you just tell people where to find information about Shyam? And then talk a bit more about, why you set up Shyam. In what context was it when you were observing the needs of the British Hindu population?
Yeah, sure. No, thank you. So our website is www.gitaclass.org. So it's GITA class.org. And when you go onto the website, you find various different courses. We've got a course on the Bhagavad Gita, which is around 225 hours, and it's 700 videos on there. And we've got a course, a very, very quick summary course in the Ramayan, which is about 5 hours, and a course on the Hanuman Chalisa, which is around 4 or 5 hours as well, and another basic course on introduction to Hinduism and Hindu deities. So the entire course and all our teachings are free online. It was given to us for free out of love by our gurus, and we want to impart it for free. So we've broken down barriers of costs. It's available online to everyone. There's no barriers of geography, and you can study it at your own pace. So there's no barriers of time. And all we want to do is to bridge the gap. 2011, when I first learnt these Shastras, I felt there was a big gap in terms of wisdom You find lots of people, when you go to various schools in the UK, you find people from lots of different backgrounds who children from the age of 4 or 5 can write their names and the names of others in their own languages, but very few Indian and Hindu children can write like their names or the names of others in Sanskrit or Hindi or local languages like Punjabi and Gujarati. So it was just a concern at that time that there's a big gap in the knowledge. When you look at the history of the Indian community as they came from India to the UK or via Africa and so on, the focus is very much on the accumulation of wealth, building up the wealth and being able to feed the family. And they've done amazing in terms of coming as refugees in many cases from East Africa and other places, being thrown out of the country and being given refuge in the UK, and just learning from scratch and building up their families and their businesses and the employment situation from scratch and fending from their families. So because there was such an emergency situation, a large focus on that, the aspect of culture, the aspect of religion, dharma, slowly eroding over time. So what you see amongst the generation that I was brought up in, there's absolutely no connection. It affects people in various ways. They're broken away from the vegetarian diet and lifestyle. They're breaking away from their families, like multi-generation families not living together. No respect for like elderly people, parents. No respect for like the gods and the deities. And there are some good people still out there, mainly because of the upbringing where these cultural values are instilled, or if they came very fortunate like me to both have the upbringing and also to come across like a guru from a young age who they saw is the real thing. They're very, very blessed and fortunate to have that, but not many people are fortunate to have that. So we bridged that gap and started teaching based on the writing the Bhagavad Gita first. So initially I just gave a small talk to a group of 8 people when it became so popular. So many people came to the talks, and we did 140 continuous talks on the Bhagavad Gita every single week in the city of London, all of which were well attended and had people from all walks of life, both Hindu and non-Hindu, that were very fascinated by the great Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, and its applicability to solve every single problem in modern life and to solve every problem in the world. And through those Bhagavad Gita talks, people became interested in other scriptures and in the Ramayan, the Hanuman Chalisa. So we held various events through that. After like doing lots of talks in the city, we received a lot of interest from Hindu community organizations, so the local Samajas, and also the British Civil Service, the British Police, the British Army, so many different places, and it became popular there. And then the pandemic came, so we were doing lots of events at Parliament and British Army, and during the pandemic we did a lot of virtual events. So where we met Melissa G, so organizations such as Healing Our Earth, and various different community organizations like the Prajapati Samaj, and it's all across the world. We started imparting the wisdom across there. So it's just this path, something that was meant to be a small group and to give a few talks, just became a massive organization. So we've now got 320,000 people, of which we've got 32 teachers. And the amazing thing is that out of those 32 teachers, 31 are female. So we created great female leaders in the Hindu community, teaching, doing the work of the Brahmins, teaching the wisdom. And what is very, very strange is that the Brahmin communities all over the world invite me, who am not born as a Brahmin, to actually teach them about Hinduism. So it's very, very interesting that how much the knowledge has been lacking and how much we have bridged the gap to kind of root people in their tradition. Because if the tradition and the culture is lost, no matter how much wealth or whatever someone has, they're nothing without that identity and that culture. And a lot of misconceptions that people have about the Hindu Dharma, we've cleared all of those as well, and look forward to continuing that work. And I really enjoy mentoring people and training the next generation of leaders and teachers to teach the teachings in a very authentic way. So that's going to continue, and it's just growing from strength to strength there. So I'm delighted to be in this great lineage, in this great tradition.
Wow, an amazing seva, Bhaiya. Bahut dhanyavad on behalf of all British Hindus and Hindus across the world. I'm sure you have members who are not in Britain as well, but the vast majority are, aren't they, of those 320,000?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. So we've got members in the US and India, and it's really funny where this tradition comes from. People are telling us we need you in India, because especially in the urban areas in India, people are going away from their culture, and in the rural areas it's still very strong. So people are saying, come to India. I'm getting contacted by the members of the parts of the Indian government civil service to ask me to give talks there as well. So it's very interesting to see where India, where all this culture originates, is kind of slowly moving away from that tradition, where it should be the opposite, because the rest of the world is starting to embrace it. You see a lot of famous kind of sports personalities, American football players, basketball players in the US, like the people who are peak performers, adopting vegetarian lifestyles and going to India, to Varanasi, Prayag, and various different places, because they've embraced Indian culture, and it's because of the Indian traditions and Hinduism that they're achieving the success. So it's very strange when you see Indians moving away from that, which I just don't understand. Yeah.
Absolutely. And actually, I'm planning a future video about the British Hindu experience. So just to keep my viewers posed on that one, it's coming up quite soon. But yes, thank you so much, Bhaiya. So 320,000 followers, and as a result of that, you were quite fantastically awarded a BEM for that, in recognition of that massive achievement.
Yeah.
So congratulations again. I know it's very belated, but
Right.
so one of the main reasons I called you onto my channel right now was that you have recently returned from a magnificent visit to Bharat. And this is very relevant to me because it was a visit focused on my Ishta Dev, Hanumanji. And I really love talking to people about their Ishta Devs. And you've said earlier, you mentioned Bhagwan Krishan. I know he's your Ishta Dev.
Yes.
Focusing back on Hanumanji and your recent visit to Bharat. It was there to mark Hanuman Janmatsav, wasn't it? So perhaps you could tell us a bit more about it and inspire more of us to do a similar yatra. I mean, you very kindly invited me to attend, but with a baby, it was just not possible this year. We'd love to in future. So yes, please inspire us all to take such a magnificent yatra.
Yes, when we look at the yatras and the traditions, there was a story in the Shrimad Bhagavad where Sri Krishna had over kind of 16,000 wives. It was mainly, there's a misconceptions about it, but it was mainly because 16,000 women were captured by a demon king, and he rescued them, and nobody wanted to accept them in society. So he said, I'll accept you as my queens. So all of the 16,000 and plus the 8 main wives that he had, each of those members of all of those families were very, very happy. When Dev Rishi Narad went to visit Dwarka and he saw them all happy, he asked Sri Krishna, what is the secret of the happy family? And Sri Krishna gave the 4 pillars of the family. So the 4 pillars are: the family does the puja together, stays happy. The family that always eats together stays happy. So in the Indian traditions, there's very big tradition to have family members eat together. The third is the sadhitya, the conversation, to always converse with each other about spiritual matters. They remain happy. And the fourth is to actually go on tirtha yatras together, to keep the family happy and together. So tirtha yatra is a very important tradition. If you look at thousands of years ago, when we didn't have aeroplanes or cars, people had to walk long distances to go to Hardwar, Rishikesh, Kedarnath, to travel to these places. They had to go through kashta, or the difficulties, which we call dabas. And it was a big thing where you have to go through a long journey, sometimes takes days or months. And it's a very, very spiritual process when you actually reach there, because that spiritual journey is very, very cleansing. So nowadays, in today's times, we have airplanes and cars and so on. So it's much easier to do it. But you still sometimes have to climb mountains and go through the heat. So my particular journey, as you said, started on Hanuman Janmotsav and finished around the time of Akshaya Tritiya, which is a very spiritually auspicious time, where the sun and the moon are in their peak places. And so it's a very important day to start new activities, especially spiritual activities. So the journey, what I like to do in India, having visited many different states, is to stay in one state and to explore the religious places, the temples, and the places of historical significance to the Indian civilization. So it started off from Bangalore. We traveled. It was a long journey to Hampi. For people that didn't know, it was when ancient India invasions were happening during the medieval period. North India was invaded. A lot of the temples were being destroyed. with the foreign invaders. So there was a fear that the foreign invaders were going to come to the south. And so there was a great Shankaracharya by the name of Swami Vidyaranya, who did a very strong penance of the Gayatri mantra. So he chanted it many, many times, and he attained the self-realization, and he got the vision of Ma Bhagavati. So when he turned around, there were huge mountains being burnt, and he asked Ma that I've done so much penance, but why didn't you come to me earlier? She said, because you've just burnt those mountains of your karma that have appeared in front of you now. So when he retained self-realization, he went to the forest, and he wrote, he was known as Madhvacharya, wrote great commentaries of some of our shastras, and he's known as one of the 5 great saints of Hinduism. So Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vallabhacharya. So it's part of that tradition, and he wrote great suttas on bhakti, but he was a true Brahmin. And what I mean by a true Brahmin, the test of what a true Brahmin is the quality of the Kshatriyas they create. So if you look at the history, you look at the tradition, Shri Krishna created Arjun, Vashishta created Ram, the great Kshatriyas, Chanakya created Chandragupta Maurya. Even if you look recently, in recent times, Swami Ramdas created Shivaji Maharaj. In the same way, Swami Vidyaranya found 2 brothers that had been converted and had lost their ways. He brought them back into the Sanatan Dharma fold and created a kingdom. It was a kingdom where I think it was a rabbit that was being chased by a fox, and the rabbit had outwitted the fox of being at the top of the hill, and the fox was exhausted and gave up. So they said that we're going to fight against all the odds from this very place where that happened. So they created the Vijayanagara Empire, which expanded, which fought against the colonial invaders, which were tearing apart Indian culture, and expanded far and wide all over South India. And it became one of the great empires in Indian history, where there was a lot of flourishing of art and culture and Hinduism, some of the most beautiful temples that were made. But unfortunately, towards the end of the time, these very kind of secular type kings came to the fore, and they started giving leeway and compromising with the Hindu values and the traditions, and they started giving away parts away of the kingdom. And the very people that they give away, the compromising and doing all of that, would stab them in the back. And there was complete devastation of that kingdom. People were brutally killed, and the empire came to an end. So there's great lessons to be learnt from that history. Unfortunately, when you go to North India, most of the temples have been destroyed. But when you go to South India, because there's been the Vijayanagara Empire, a lot of the temples have been preserved in their beautiful forms. Unfortunately, in Vijayanagara, a lot of these temples have been destroyed, but there are a few temples, like the Veerapaksha Temple dedicated to Shivaji, which I went to, which was so beautiful. There was an elephant there called Lakshmi that blesses visitors who come there. It was a very, very profound experience there. I went to the Krishna Temple, which is being rebuilt, which was damaged by the invasions. There's a very beautiful Narsimha Lakshmi a murti there, which is a really huge murti. Unfortunately, it was attacked, and so it no longer constitutes the Vigraha that people can pray to, but people can be able to visit it. But it's all being reconstructed. There's been a lot of vandalism there in recent years and a lot of damage, but the government in Karnataka is doing everything it can to try and protect those ancient temples and to rebuild them. There was a very beautiful shivling which is submerged in the water, and there's particular rays of light that come at particular times where you can worship. So it's very, very fascinating there. Then one of the my favorite temples, Achyutarayana temple, which is very hard to get to. Most of the tourists don't go there. So I decided I wanted to go there, and they left me. I went in a rickshaw because I always enjoy going on rickshaws. It's more fun than the cars. So I got left there by the side, and I traveled across these boulders and mountains, and I was climbing up the mountains, and very few people there. But as I walked there, I came across, my hair stood on end, because the very places that were described in the Ramayan, the Kishkindha, which is a book of the forest, where Ram met Sugriv, where Ram met Hanuman on the Rishik mountain, where Bali had the fight in the cave against a demon, where he was trapped there. All of those places actually were there. There were temples in those places. Those places were actually live places. So it wasn't a story, and they were described in the exact same way they were described in the Ramayan, just these mountains and boulders that have been fallen off, and it being a very, very kind of hot and arid region. So it was very kind of like a dry region. And I just felt the essence and the radiance of Sri Hanumanji in each and every place. And the river flowed very, very beautifully along the forest. And I climbed to some beautiful kind of sunset spots as well. But sitting at the temples and having that time to myself in the temples was a very spiritually uplifting experience. And then the main place that I went to visit was the birthplace of Sri Hanumanji. So I visited there on the date of Akshaya Tritiya, where they take you to the bottom of the mountain and you have to climb around 650 steps. And it's a very kind of hot time of 45 degrees. And it's amazing that I only found out about this place in recent years, where there's a lot of like tirthastans in India that are well known. It's not so well known, possibly because it got found very, very recently. But it's a very place where Ma Anjaneya gave birth to Sri Hanumanji, where Hanumanji was born at the top of the mountain. So it's very, very beautiful. I bought a gada, like a mace, at the bottom of the mountain, and I took it to the top to offer it to the priest as an offering to Hanumanji. And I gave it as a gift to some of the poor kids that lived there. But going up to the top and experiencing what Ma Anjaneya must have experienced was an incredible feeling. And it was very, like, sometimes there's a lot of steps to climb, but the reward of climbing to the top and going through that tapas of going to the exact birthplace of Hanumanji I felt absolutely complete and so uplifted by going there. Words definitely can't describe it. And I climbed up twice in the end because some of the other family members came along the second time as well. So it was an incredible experience. And after that, visited various other temples and places of historical significance in Vijayanagara. And then we went to Hampi, where we talked about the Ishta Dev. My Kul Devi is Ma Chamundeshwari. So there's a beautiful temple there. And more towards Belur nearby, there's Ma Chitradurga Mandir near the fort as well. And Mysore has a very, very strong tradition of yoga and Ayurveda. And what I found beautiful about some of the yoga and Ayurvedic places, how much they've preserved the Hindu tradition. So when you go to some of the Ayurvedic places, they have the deities of Bhagwan Dhanvantari. They make the offerings there. You see a lot of the doctors, they wear the tilak and the tradition ornaments in Sanatan Dharma. So very, very traditional and very beautifully kept. So it was very, very nice to go there, both for the natural beauty. Everywhere you drive in the countryside, you see sheer natural beauty. For the spiritual upliftment of being at the birthplace of Hanumanji, also the historic significance to learn about our history, like the great people who were actually born, like Maharaj Krishna Devaya, Maharaj Harihara, and what they actually did to protect our tradition, to learn about the great Brahmins, as I said, like Madhvacharya ji, who's a role model to everyone who's imparting Sanatan Dharma. And also there's always a big difference between a retreat and a dharmic retreat. You can go on a retreat and you can still feel tired when you come back. But when you go to a dharmic retreat, you always feel uplifted and energized when you come back. So it was amazing. And on another note, the food there, when you have the Mysore masala dosas and the idlis and the uttapams, they're second to none. So it was very, very nice from a culinary perspective. As someone from North India who's fascinated by South Indian foods and traditions, to have some of the more non-spicy masala dosas there and the beautiful food and see how healthy it is and how it's made was very, very fascinating as well.
Wow. And so just the benefit of my viewers, where can they find more information about this magnificent yatra? Are you publicizing it anywhere with photos, for example?
Yes, absolutely. So my Instagram channel and my Facebook channel, mainly my Instagram channel, I'll be uploading all the photos over the next couple of weeks. If anyone does want to learn more about the itinerary and the steps to go there, we have got kind of 34 WhatsApp groups where we'll be sharing some of the information. So I'll just quickly give a number. It's, if you're dialing in from international numbers, it's +44 7904 720 516. So if you just send your full name, one of our teachers will add you to our groups and we'll be posting more about it. I'm so excited to share photos of some of the places relating to the Ramayan and Hanumanji's birthplace, where I went to, and to actually spread kind of like the knowledge of it, so that more people can go there and just actually experience how real the Ramayan is, and how it's actually still there in very much in spirit, exactly the way it was. So like the Rishimukh mountain and the caves and the other places of significance. So please do join. I'll be delighted to share more of the photos and the information as well.
Wow. And what's your Instagram ID? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, so it would just be my full name. So it's Dhruv Chhatralia. So you can see that on the information from this YouTube link, and it will come up. So yeah, Dhruv Chhatralia on Instagram.
Fantastic. Okay, Bhaiya. So I'm going to put you slightly on your toes, not in a big way. I want to ask you to please describe my Ishta Dev Hanumanji in 3 adjectives.
3 adjectives.
Yeah.
I would describe Hanumanji as the Param Guru, the Supreme Guru. I'd describe Hanumanji as the protector, because in Hanuman Chalisa, the word Jai is said 5 times, and you know about the Panchmukhi Hanuman, because it represents the 5 pranas, so he protects the 5 breaths. And Hanumanji, I'd say, not one word, but the giver of a reservoir of strength. I would say unlimited strength in any life circumstances you want, you'll get from Shri Hanumanji. And I am a testament. My life is a testament from that. Since the age of 18, without fail, I've been chanting the Hanuman Chalisa, and I've just experienced how my life has been transformed in many ways, in the success that I've achieved in my studies, in my career at law school, and all that comes, it's a given, right? Because Hanuman Chalisa is a Siddha mantra. But more importantly, the company of wonderful people like you, Hanuman, Melissa ji, and a wonderful company of gurus and sages who take me on a path of goodness and righteousness and dharma, has been amazing. And without reciting the Hanuman Chalisa, it's very, very difficult to travel on that path, but also attain success. You see, wherever dharma is, as the Bhagavad Gita says, success will come there, because Shri always reside with Bhagavan Vishnu, and Hanuman Chalisa is the biggest success mantra. So I would say those are the 3 adjectives.
Fantastic. And I must absolutely resonate in agreement with them. I certainly derive a lot of my strength from Hanumanji as well. It's very difficult, the work that we both do. But I feel he's my inspiration. And I really loved your first word about being guru, because I previously posted another video on my channel talking about Hanumanji being my guru. And in the comments, I saw people saying, but Hanumanji will not accept himself as anyone's guru. So perhaps you could just comment on that. Is that true, or is that a misconception?
Yes, it's the beautiful thing about the Hanuman Chalisa is the genius of Tulsidas Ji, that he's written chopais all over to disprove all of these theories and misconceptions that come up. So if you look at the 4th part of the Hanuman Chalisa, it says Jai 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 Hanuman Gosai Krupa Guru Gurudev Ganaya, which is basically making a plea to Shri Hanumanji to accept us as his guru. And we see in the Hanuman Chalisa at that particular point, when we chant it, we actually raise our hands like this. It's like a baby reaching out to the mother, asking for the mother to pick it up, the baby up. In the same way, we as spiritual babies, we're all very early in our spiritual path. We make a plea to Hanumanji to accept us as the spiritual guru. So it's definitely like a misconception that was on the comments box there, where people are saying that Hanumanji doesn't like being accepted as a guru. Hanumanji is the peak guru. And how do you recognize the guru? The guru is the dispeller of ignorance, the person who imparts light. So when you look for the criteria of guru, you look for someone who is the peak of wisdom, right? Someone who has the greatest amount of wisdom, and someone who is a peak of devotion as well, and someone who's also the peak of karma yoga as well. So who can be a greater peak of devotion, karma yoga and gnan than Shri Hanumanji? He was a perfect karma yogi. Everything he did it for Shri Ram. That was his only purpose in life, everything for dharma. So that's karma yoga. He was completely devoted to Shri Ram. Everything he did was in devotion to Shri Ram. So he's a peak of bhakti yoga, and he studied under the sun god, and he has the greatest amount of wisdom out of all the devas. So the Hanuman Chalisa, he's a peak of wisdom as well. So in everything, whether you're on a path of the wisdom, devotion, or the path of action, And also he's a great yogi because he's the son of the wind god, right? And the yoga is the path of the wind god, the prana. So Hanumanji is the supreme guru in whichever path of yoga one is taking. Hanumanji should definitely be accepted. He's my own guru as well. So Hanumanji, I always plead to Hanumanji to be my guru, and there can be no greater guru than Hanumanji. So we should always try to plead to Hanumanji to be our guru and to give us more bhakti, gnan, and karma yoga as well.
Fantastic. Well, I am very relieved to hear that. So another misconception is that Hanumanji will not accept women to worship him.
Yes.
So you could comment on that one as well. Is that true? I really hope not.
Yes. So there's a lot of kind of like misconceptions. Like when you look at the life of Hanumanji, and I guess when you look at people who are on a path, there's all sorts of things that people say about what you can and can't do. So it's really, really strange when you see women when they go to like the Hanumanji temples or the temples of any of the gods. They always go to all the gods and they like worship all the gods. But as soon as they go to like Hanumanji, they kind of like close. They put like their cloths over them. It is really, really strange when you see that, because they say it's because of Hanumanji is a brahmacharya, so he's celibate. But isn't that an insult to his celibacy? If someone thinks that someone is so weak that we can't go in front of him, so because we will upset the celibacy. In fact, he is a complete pure brahmachari, and so as a result, nobody can sway him from that path. So if someone is a complete brahmachari, then we should definitely, women and both men should go and worship to Sri Hanumanji. Such is the power, and there are countless women who have worshipped Sri Hanumanji and received the help of Hanumanji. And who can be a better example than Ma Sita? Sri Hanumanji went in front of Ma Sita, who is obviously a Stree, right? And he went in front of Sita. He uplifted Sita Mata, who was in Lanka at the time. And Sri Hanumanji was the one who helped Ma Sita and helped Sri Ram as well. So certainly women should definitely worship Sri Hanumanji, and there is no doubt about that. And I should also say that like the worship of Sri Hanumanji can be done by men, women, children, everyone. So you see kind of, as I said, like this is kind of like a madness that when they talk about like Hanumanji. And also there is a chapai in the Hanuman Chalisa. Tulsidaji must have envisaged this as well. It says Sappa Ram Tapasvi Raja Tinke Kaj Sakal Tamasaja. So you're the caretaker of the Lord and a monarch of all those who are devoted to penance. So look at the meaning of this chapai. It's written that Ram is a monarch of all that devoted to penance. So Sri Hanumanji is austere. He's not just a king or material king, but he's austere. And Sri Hanumanji performed Ram's work. So he's the caretaker of even the Lord. So it's a very insult to any person when you bow down from far away. Everyone should be able to worship Hanumanji rather than say that, oh, if you bow down in front of you, the celibacy will be broken. So the worship of Hanumanji, the penance of Sri Hanumanji, and the chanting of Hanumanji can be done by everyone completely without exception.
Fantastic. And of course, I mean, it seems such common sense. But as you say, you see people responding and behaving in this way, and it shows, as you mentioned earlier, this divorce of Hindus from their shastras, from their knowledge, from the wisdom, ancient wisdom. Another way in which there is this divorce that I've certainly observed, and I'm sure you have too, is when certainly people in British Hindus, you hear them describing Hanumanji as a monkey god.
Yes.
So I, in a very recent video, we're talking about the use of the English language, the dangers that creates for Hindus. So monkey god, is that really the right word that we should be using for Hanumanji? I'm sure it's not, but I'm sure you will also explain.
Yes, no, thank you, Melissa Ji, for asking this very important question. So it's another misunderstanding we need to clear up. So Hanumanji is not a monkey god. The word in Sanskrit is Vana. And there's no translation of this in English, and doesn't have to be a translation. It's just Vana. Just like you can't translate dharma, you can't translate karma, and those words are now in the English lexicon. Everyone uses karma in the same way. It's not a monkey god. So it's Hindus that have very limited knowledge and haven't gone through the effort of learning about their culture and the scriptures that they call a monkey god. So we should never make the mistake of addressing someone so great as a monkey god. So Shri Hanumanji himself is a form of tej, radiance. So the tej of Shri Hanumanji is filled in each and every shloka of the Hanuman Chalisa. And if someone is like a Devta, and someone so great, to describing it as a monkey god is very, very demeaning. So the Varnas were a particular type of people that are around during the Treta Yuga, and there's a whole history, and the Dwapara Yuga as well. And Hanumanji, in fact, is still around because he's one of the 8 Chiranjeevis, or the immortals in Indian culture. So you see them less nowadays, but they were a particularly type of, it was kind of very close to human beings, and they were called Varnas. And just when you read colonial translations, and the people who translated them were colonialists as well, and did conversion agendas and all sorts of things. So definitely we call him the Vana rather than the monkey god. And Hanumanji in the Tulsidas Ramayan says that we don't need to count on any other devas, just count of Shri Hanumanji and he will deliver us to Shri Ram. So someone so great, we should definitely never address as the monkey god. Yes.
Absolutely. So yes, in that previous video, when I was talking about the dangers of the English language, I made the point that we should, I feel, when we're speaking English, talk about Hinduism and Hindu. I know many people, they don't like those words, and I understand why. I understand the origin of these, but unfortunately, that is the identifier for us at the moment. But for any other noun, we should use the Sanskrit, the actual word, the Vana, dharma. Dharma. We shouldn't be trying to water it down, and because it just completely corrupts the meaning. So the exception I feel for Hinduism and Hindu, unfortunately, at the moment, we're stuck with those words. So we have to use them because they're understood. And when they're understood, people then better understand us. But for other nouns, we should be using the actual word. Not substituted into English.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Bhaiya. You have been so kind in giving your time. I know you've been so incredibly busy since you've returned from your magnificent visit. So just remind everyone to please, go and look at those photos on Bhaiya's Instagram, and definitely go and check out the website for Shime. Just remind us one more time, Bhaiya, what is the website link?
Yes, thank you, Melissa G. And it's www.gitaclass.org, www.gitaclass.org. And you are all very much welcome to begin studying the Bhagavad Gita. It's a very auspicious time at the moment. So please do begin the course. And it's very, very important. You see just above me over here, I keep various spiritual books, and you were talking about finding the right sources. So through many, many years, I've read lots of different books and lots of different scriptures, and we've done the hard work of finding the most authentic ones for those who are not able to understand the Sanskrit language or even Hindi in English. But it's obviously preferable to learn in Sanskrit and the Indian traditional languages, because there's certain emotions, as you said, and words that can't be translated and get distorted through the colonial translation. So very, very important to do that. But even for those who don't understand the Indian languages, in English, they are there for some of the really great teachers like the Swami Dayanand Saraswatis, the Sri Aurobindos, Swami Jyotimayananda, some very, very great saints in Indian culture, Swami Ramdas. We've taken a lot of their teachings, and we're not aligned to any guru organization. We're here to just serve Sanatan Dharma, and we're not trying to form any kind of separate movement of our own. We're just trying to preserve, protect, promote, and practice Sanatan Vedic Dharma, and always stay true to it. We're not interested in growing whatever numbers. The numbers has just been a side product of it. The most important thing is that we only answer to the devas, the deities of Hinduism, and we're there to serve them and do our work as a bhakti to them. So I hope you all grow and flourish on this wonderful path and this wonderful course.
Fantastic. And just one last reminder to also please everyone subscribe to this channel, like this video. Let's see if we can get to 30,000 subscribers. That would be amazing. Bahut
Yes.
dhanyavad, Bhaiya. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I'm sure you found that as fascinating as I did, and you are truly inspired to take a similar yatra yourself in the very near future. Bahut dhanyavad, Bhaiya. Namaste.
Thank you, Melissa.
Jai
Namaste.